This is AI Governance and Ethics 101 by Michelle Solicito. So first, what is AI? We'll be looking at what types of AI there are and which ones cause the most concern, and why we need governance and control over AI and what the ethical concerns are.
So there are lots of types of AI. AI includes machine learning, deep learning, neural networks. The main classifications most people use are these four here. So narrow and weak AI focuses on one particular task but can perform it very well but cannot do anything outside of that area. An example of that is things like Alexa Echo devices. They can only do something they have a skill loaded for. There's a program to respond to particular commands. And you can add skills, but that's all an Echo can do. Generative AI learns to generate from new content. So it learns patterns within existing data and then uses that knowledge to create new content. So the new content can include things like text or photos or videos, 3D models, music, speech, and so on. Some examples of generative AI tools include ChatGPT from OpenAI, which is the one you've probably heard most about, Lambda from Google, there's Bard as well, there's Google Assistant, and so on. Strong AI, this is what we're all aiming towards, has the ability to perform any task that a human can perform in theory. Doesn't exist right now. Super AI is theoretical, can think for itself and can experience emotions and so on, and will pass the Turing test. The Turing test basically is a way of asking a human and a machine the same questions and not being able to tell which one is human and which one's a machine. We're still a way off that yet.
So why are we concerned about AI? Pretty much most people are concerned about the generative AI that has recently become forefront in people's minds, things like ChatGPT and so on, primarily because they are unable to determine whether essays or articles have been written by a human or written by AI to some extent. That is the big thing that people are concerned with right now. Because they've seen that, they're starting to ask questions about what regulation exists or what regulation should exist and how easy or how difficult it is to regulate AI. Some people say it's impossible, but there are steps we can take for sure. Another issue is that the government itself, in all countries pretty much, has a lack of AI expertise. And so the regulators really don't know how to regulate it because it's kind of a new thing that no one has, or very few people have a lot of expertise in. Another concern is that the use of AI is causing an insatiable appetite for data. So companies are just consuming data at a huge rate. Now, this had already started to happen. We all know about big data, which is now relabeled data analytics, but it's basically about huge amounts of data. And companies already wanted lots and lots of data to make decisions, to make better decisions based upon, and so on. But AI just adds that exponential curve to that insatiable appetite for data. So a lot of people are worried about that. And because of that, they're also worried about, the energy crisis, the whole idea of saving the planet and so on. A lot of this churning of data is taking up a lot of computing time and energy, and therefore people are worried about how we're going to conserve the planet given that. So there are a lot of risks of misuse of AI, and those issues are also a concern. Dual use foundation models are particularly of concern in this area because you start off with a model from someone like Microsoft or Google, but then you can add your own area of expertise onto that model And that can also, of course, allow bad actors to add their content on top of that model and so on. So there are security risks about, who can change that model or who can add to that model. And if they do, how do we know that if they're trying to do something nefarious or bad? And bad actors, are notoriously difficult to detect even in the real world, and in the AI world it may be even more difficult. The equity risks, that some people in the world will have less access to AI than others, and so the benefits of AI will not be available to some people perhaps. So we've got to worry about, the equity involved in that. Civil rights risks, we have to worry about, whether the way that models are trained would have a bias towards some groups of people rather than others. For example, if it biased towards white people because a lot of the data that came into the model was from white people's experiences, therefore the data that came out of the output might be, tug or discriminate against black people, for example. So one of the issues with AI generally is the bad data in, bad data out. So if you don't have the right kind of data coming in, then any decisions you make based on that data or any outputs generated from that data can be very biased. So we have to worry about the bias inherent in AI. We also need to make sure that there's effective oversight, because if there's a failure of effective oversight, then these kinds of biases will just go on and continue and be built upon and so on. And, effective oversight is one of the ways of preventing that. And, we need some body to monitor that whole thing. And government is the ideal location for that in many people's opinions. Some people think corporate oversight is better, and sort of voluntary corporate oversight from companies and organizations is better. A lack of accountability is another worry. So, the person that actually writes the AI software maybe doesn't feel as if they're responsible for the output. They just wrote an algorithm. If the AI itself learns from the data that is put into the system, it can learn things that are unpredictable. So the developer might feel they're not responsible for what it itself learned from the data and so on. So who is accountable in situations like that? So there are a number of bodies trying to look at solutions to this. Some of them are corporate based, so Microsoft and Google and Meta and so on. They're all looking into solutions to this problem. But the government is also putting feelers out there to try and find solutions to this. So the US government and the UK government recently cooperated and signed an agreement on AI safety. And they're hoping to work together to make sure that there's oversight, there's regulation, there's control, there's testing and so on. So they both launched an AI Safety Institute in November of last year, 2023. In the UK, it's called the AI Safety Institute, and it's known as ASI. We have a whole commitment from a lot of the corporate AI developers like OpenAI, Google DeepMind, Microsoft and Meta and so on. They signed voluntary commitments last year to provide their generative AI models for review to groups like ASI in the UK, for example. The US equivalent is the AI Safety Institute, which is known as USAC, and is kind of run by the NIST Artificial Intelligence Safety Institute. So NIST is the government body that regulates a lot of this security and technology and so on. So they have a whole piece of work out there looking at all of this stuff. And they have a number of groups, and we'll go through that in a minute about what they're looking at. President Biden also put out an executive order on AI in 2023 on October the 30th. His executive order was about safety, security, and trust in the development and use of artificial intelligence, and it kind of gave broad guidelines of what we need to achieve and how we're going to achieve it. And now it's up to people like NIST, AC, and so on to put that into practice. So those are some of the solutions. There are others too, and those will evolve over time. So in the US and in the UK, they have these groups that are working on the standards. So ASIC is the one we're looking at here from NIST in the US. It has set up a number of groups and they're looking at different areas. So one of them is looking at the risk management side of generative AI. One is looking at the synthetic content. So this is all about standards, tools, methods, and best practices for authenticating content, tracking that content, labeling the content. For example, you can use watermarks, or you can have detection mechanisms so people can detect whether or not content is automatically generated. Preventing the generation of bad content, such as child abuse content and porn content and so on. And there's also auditing of content. So all the standards and tools and methods and best practices for all of that are being studied as part of these working groups. Another one of those groups is looking at capability evaluations. So they're creating guidance and benchmarks for evaluating and auditing AI capabilities. So they're focusing on potential harm, first of all. So this is the most important area they're worried about. Things like chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear, cybersecurity, autonomous replication, control of physical systems, and other areas. So anything that can be harmful that's generated by AI in any of those areas is the prime concern of this capability evaluations group. People are very concerned that AI could, generate nuclear information and radiological information and so on, and that's got to be controlled for obvious safety reasons. This capability evaluations group is also developing and helping ensure the availability of test environments to support development of safe, secure, and trustworthy AI technologies. So these test environments will make sure that this is a safe way to develop and secure those applications. Another group is going to look at red teaming. So this is all about enabling the development of AI through guidelines, procedures, and processes. But the AI red teaming tests to ensure that deployment is safe, secure, and the systems are trustworthy. Safety and security group is looking at coordinating and developing guidelines related to managing the safety and security of dual-use foundational models. So these dual-use foundational models are the ones where you can take a basic GPT model, for example, and then you can extend it to do a number of different things, and you can add in your own data and so on. And the worry with that is, who controls the output of those models that are built on top of models, if you like. So that's what they're going to be looking at. So some of the solutions to ethical concerns that we or other developers and architects and so on can take on board right now are things like ethical by design concepts. So the whole idea of building ethics into your AI right from the beginning. So one thing, for example, is to allow the user to opt in or opt out of different types of AI usage, so that if they don't like AI or they don't trust AI, they can opt out, and they know if they're opting in, they know what they're opting into. Part of that is clearly labeling AI interactions so that people know that they're about to use AI. Now, some of this is a bit difficult because what you label AI and what you don't label AI is a little bit tricky, because we already had a lot of data manipulation, which could in some ways be labeled AI even before all this concern about AI came up. So it's a little bit difficult to work out what is AI and what is not. But if it's clear and obviously AI, if we label it clearly and make sure that our users, our employees, our citizens, our customers, they all are aware of what they're participating in terms of AI, then they can make that choice whether to opt in or opt out, or whether to give that data to you or not give that data to you, and so on. Also, in our ethical by design, we can show that AI represents an improvement over the current state. So as we build AI, we can just inform users and inform employees of the benefits that the AI is giving us over what we would have had if we didn't have AI. So for example, in AI can generate standard code templates that basically just take the drudgery out of coding applications. But we wouldn't use AI right now to write a full system, because it doesn't understand a lot of the way humans work and the way they think and the whole workflows that are needed and so on. That kind of thing is not something that AI can really do yet. Not saying it won't in the future, but right now it can't. So we could emphasize the fact that we're taking the drudgery out of coding, the stuff that we all know has to be done, but often takes a lot of time to do in coding, but is very easily churned out by an AI tool. And also it can be more efficient and effective at doing that, because it follows standard rules that are easier to do in an automated style than it is for a human to do. We make mistakes and so on. And then we can use AI to kind of create that foundation, and then we write the code on top of that makes a difference. So if we educate people about the benefits that AI are bringing to the table, it takes away some of the fear about what AI can do and what it can't do. Here are some resources that you might find useful. About one of them is big data for AI and ML. So as I said, artificial intelligence, machine learning is not really much use if it's built on top of data that is bad data. So it's very important for the data to be good data, and it's not biased data to give biased results out of it. So big data is an important part of AI and ML. So with big data, we need to get in data from good sources. We need to make sure we validate that data, and we make sure we get rid of the bad data from it, and so on. So that's all about big data pipelines, including data lakes and data warehouses and so on. So that, if you want to see that presentation, you can click on that link there. Then there's a presentation about OpenAI, and that's just a kind of model that you can use in AI and how you would use it, and especially in Azure, that link is all about. Then there's a Gartner link, just really an introduction to what generative AI is and what the issues are and so on. And then there's that NIST link, all about that whole initiative to work out what we need to do about AI and what standards and controls and so on we need within AI. If you need anything else, just contact me and I can answer any questions. Thanks.